Welcome back to another tutorial. In this video, we're going to take a look at the timeline tools. For that, we need to open the timeline tab. You can find it in Windows, Edit Windows, Timeline, and you can open it in any workspace that you want, in the animations, in the light, in the scene, as it comes very useful to work with it. And the first thing we're going to find is the sequence name. And this icon here, you can create new sequence in this icon here, give it a name. As you can see, we have two. We can switch between each other clicking on the edit icon. And as you can see, I have this sequence here, and I can open this one, and I have a different one. The next thing is the render icon. Here you can open the render settings, and we have a tutorial explaining all of them. The next one is the new window. If you hover over any of the icons, you will see a small tooltip about what the icon does. In this case, a new window will pop this screen that will show the cameras in the timeline. And you will have a preview of that. And if you want to have that preview on the main viewport, you can click here, and it will lock the view of the viewport based on the cameras on your timeline. So as you can see, I have this camera here, and when I switch to the next one, the viewport will switch to this camera, and I cannot move in the viewport unless I release this icon. Here you have your start time and end time of the sequence. This is the duration of the entire sequence. You can reduce the end time and you see now our sequence is shorter. You can do this by dragging these lines here, and you can choose whatever size you need for your sequence and where you want it to start. For example, type 0 and 10 for more control over it. And this will be the section that the render will do. Next, we have the current time, which is this line here. You can as well type a more precise number, and you can move this around to move through the timeline. Next, you have the usual media icons. You can play, stop, play backwards. You can go frame by frame, or you can go to the end or to the start of your sequence. And you have your loop and bounce icons that when enabled, every time it reaches the end, it will start again. Or with the bounce one, every time it reaches to the end, it will go backwards. Next, we have the curve editor. As you can see, this camera has keyframes for location. And if we play the animation, when it reaches the end, it just stops very drastically without any smoothing. So what we can do is click on the camera track, go to the curve editor, and as you can see, the interpolation between each keyframe is very sharp. There is no smoothing at all. What you can do is select all your keyframes and click on the cubic interpolation. There are different ways to interpolate between them. We will explain this tool further in the future. But as you can see, now the curve has some smoothing at the beginning and the end. And if we play back the animation, you can see that the camera slows down before stopping completely. So that's a very useful tool to control your keyframes and smooth everything out. Now we have the zoom selected and zoom all. This basically will fit whatever you have selected to the entire timeline. So if I click in the zoom selected, it will fit the selected items to the entire screen. And if I click in zoom all, it will show the entire timeline. And no matter how big or small it is, I can click here and it will fit the timeline into the view. Next, we have the select before and after. This will basically select everything for example, this one after the header of the timeline. So as you can see, it has selected everything past this point, except things that are in the middle. This allows me to move everything in the timeline that is beyond this point, or everything after this point. For example, if I here and I want to select everything on the left, I can click here and it will select everything. Next, we have the cut mode. There are two modes. The first one, which is this one. If you click it, you will enable the cut tool. And as you can see, I can, whenever I click on any clip, it will slice it. And the next one is the timeline cut. Every time I click here, it will slice wherever I have the timeline header and the selected clip, for example here. Just one click and it will slice it. Next, we have this display blend curves, which will display the handles for the easy in and easy out of the animation or the blendings, and also the intensity line. And if you don't want to see that, you can disable this. I think it's on by default. Now we have the edge grab tools. This will allow you to interact with the clips in different ways. The first one is the extend and loop one. This will allow you to reduce the duration of the clip and extend it. And once it reaches the maximum length, it will start looping the animation. Then you have the scale play rate. This will allow you to change the speed at which animations are played. So as you can see, I have this animation here. If I want to make it faster, I can, with the tool of the play rate selected, I can scale it down. And basically it will play the same animation in a shorter period of time, so it will be faster. And as you can see, it's moving faster. Or I can extend this to make it go slower. Next, we have the freeze edge frame. This will basically use the last frame and freeze that animation. Right now, there is no visual clue for when this starts. But right now, let's remove this one. If I play the animation, it will freeze at the point at which I start extending the clip with this tool. So next we have the loop section. This will loop the animation without extending it. So for example, if I reduce the duration of this, or even this, the walk cycle, I can just loop this part here without first extending to the full length. So this will loop the animation. If the animation is not properly extended to the full length, it's probably not gonna loop properly. So in general, it's better to use this one, the extend and loop section. And then you have the extend, which will only extend the animation to his full length, and it will not go beyond that point looping the animation. So this first one is a mix between these two. First, it will extend, and then it will loop. The last thing we're gonna take a look is if you right click on this black bar on the timeline, you will see that you can change the time it's displayed here from seconds to frames, depending on what's more useful for you. You can also choose the frame rate of the timeline, and the values can be real values or fixed values, will be always the same. And last one thing that may be useful is, for example, if you want to move this camera, but you want to move also all the keyframes with it, you can obviously select it and then move them. Or what you can do is, with everything selected, right click and group them. And now when you click on it, it will have everything grouped together, no matter where you click. And you can move this easily through the timeline without having to select everything beneath. And to ungroup them, just right-click again and group. So I hope you find this video useful and see you in the next one.